Ned, you always have interesting weeks. This particular week, what was of interest was your hang with Matt Bell.
Somehow I got basically invited slash whatever into discussing what we were discussing last week on that argument of objective morality. And MK was going to put together a panel of people he considered to be, somewhat good at defending slash discussing morality. And lo and behold, his, I guess, champion was Matt Bell, which I found very entertaining, but at the same time pretty frustrating. I was not at my best toward the end, but I'll put it that way.
Well, Ned, I'm not in a position to reprimand you in any way, shape, or form, but I do want to be a steward to your integrity and remind you that there are better options than losing your cool or being in situations where you are prone to lose your cool.
I agree, and that's the problem. Is when I think the biggest thing is when I realized that Matt was going to play his games, I should have just said, "Look, we can either discuss this and be realistic about it, or you can, talk over me and shout me down and call me names and do all the things that you usually do, and look like a fool here, and we'll just move on to somebody else." But I didn't. I fought back, so to speak, which again it's dumb.
Yeah. I mean, today is Sunday, and there was the big parade. So my wife was there with my kid and his girlfriend. So I was alone at home, and say, what can I do to punish myself? Should I take my balls and close them in a drawer, or should I listen to that angle? And I decided to go with the angle.
It is Sunday. It's a day of observance. It's a day of penance.
Right. Yeah.
You opted for the long, drawn out, somewhat, I guess. I would say less painful, but maybe not. But a lot longer endurance of the pain rather than the short, let's get it over with pain of slamming balls in the drawer.
I am not sure it was less painful. I should close my balls in the drawer to draw that comparison.
That's exactly that's what I was going to say. I would like to see how you compare those two.
I'll be back at you next week. I'll probably do that just for science, and I'll let you know the results. But anyway, I watched that. And people which are more invested than you, Ned, have been going through that kind of ordeal. Shit happens, I guess it's the right way to say that. I mean, there is only so much you can do. I mean, fuck it.
So I kind of feel compelled to say something here.
Please do.
I think that it's a mistake to think that Matt Bell is an idiot, because he's not. He's an intelligent man. His social skills are garbage. And he comes into these hangouts with the goal of making you feel frustrated and inferior and stupid. Like, that is his primary goal, and he's admitted that. Yeah. His goal is not always to have calm, rational, analytical type conversations. His goal is to make atheists look stupid. Yep. And he loves it. The more he can manipulate, the more he can make you the puppet on his strings, the happier he is. And that's what they're after.
Right.
But it's a mistake to think that he's stupid. It's a mistake to think that he's an idiot who doesn't understand these arguments. And it's also a mistake to think that he was not the right theist to bring to a morality conversation, because he's really good. He is very, very well versed on that topic. Like, he knows the arguments. He knows what he's talking about.
Okay. Now, and Shanna, to be, to be honest, I have been very unimpressed with his arguments, quote unquote, when dealing with morality. I mean, like you said.
Yeah. I mean, I'm super unimpressed with him too, but that doesn't mean he's stupid.
Well, no.
He doesn't know what he's talking about. You know what I mean? Well, I mean, Ned, I think you're a smart guy. I respect and enjoy you. So I hope that this comes across well. But a lot of times when we're making these kind of arguments, we're building them, even with someone like Matt Bell, if the person that we're trying to explain them to just can't get their head around it, it's more likely that there's a flaw in the communication or the argument than there is, this is a complete idiot that you're talking to.
I agree.
You know what I mean? So you could take it as a cue. One, Matt Bell's not fun to have conversations with because he's a bully. 2, there might be something in your argument that needs some work, which is what I think, if I understand you correctly, this is what you're after. You're after honest critiques. You're after, this is like a warning sign. It's like, okay, there might be something that needs some work, you know?
And to kind of on that point, that was what was amazing, because as soon as we switched from Matt Bell to Shamos, I mean, got it. From square one, I had very little to explain. Right down the line, it made absolute sense to him. And I mean, he followed me the entire time.
Shamos isn't as likely to play those rhetorical games just to fucking get you fired up.
Exactly. And that's why I was saying, it's not, why with someone like Shamos is it so easy to communicate this? And so
I've got the answer. I totally got it. You didn't have to ask. Because Matt Bell is a mean person. He's smart and he's clever and he's witty, but he's also mean. He's a mean guy. Like he's a dick. He's not a nice guy that kind of gets his feathers kind of ruffled on the internet. He's a mean person. And that's why.
And that's why I don't completely agree with you. First of all, I don't think he's an idiot. But I don't completely agree with you, Shanna, when you say that he might be the right guy to bring up this kind of arguments on morality, even because he knows a lot about it. And the only reason I will contest what you said is that when you have a discussion with him, he will resort to every argument to counteract your argument, which is fair. I have no problems with that.
Yeah.
The only problem is that he will resort to arguments that he knows shit about it. And when you press him and you say, okay, do you believe in those arguments? He will say, no, but there are those arguments, which again, it's fair.
Right.
But then you ask him, okay, can you defend those arguments? And he will say, no, he can't. That happened at least twice with Ned.
Whoa!
I get to talk next. I mean, Fabio, you can finish what you were saying, of course, but I'm going to talk after you.
Yeah, okay. No, I just want to say it is fine to have that kind of approach. I have no problems with that.
Yeah.
But if you want to be not skeptic, but if you want to be, how do you say, when someone is extremely combative, if you want to be really polemic, in an argument, I got you. But I mean, at least use something that you know of, not something that you might think that it might be a good argument against what you're talking about, and you have no fucking idea what he's talking about.
So that may be the case, and I can't speak to that. I don't have that experience with Matt, but let me just give you my perspective real quick, and then I have had these conversations with Matt. When Matt and I talked for, years when I first started being, online here, right? And I'm a deist and he's a theist. He's a Christian, right? So these conversations that I had with him take away the atheistic filter, right? He has to have these conversations with me in a very different way. He can't use his normal rebuttals and his normal arguments and his normal, objections like he can with an atheist. They just don't work with me. So I've been exposed to years worth of conversations with Matt Bell that went really well, where he demonstrated a lot of knowledge on the topic of morality and the arguments against, like there's good arguments for the problem of evil, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
He understands these arguments because I've had them with him as a non-atheist, right? Like I've been exposed to a different kind of Matt Bell. So from my experience, he knows these topics and he can talk about them because he's not mean to me though, right? That's it.
Yeah, well, but I get you. I mean,
yeah, I'm not saying your experience is wrong. I'm just saying it's different than what I've experienced.
No, I mean, my experience is I don't give a flying fuck about the guy for the very same reason that you express. I mean, I think the guy is a bully and he's a mean. So to me, it is a total waste of time even listening to that guy.
Yeah.
Period. Okay, but I find really disconcerting when and it doesn't have to be Matt Bell. It might be even you. Okay. In order for you to defend or to counterattack an argument, you're trying to use something which you have read somewhere that it might be a good rebuttal. And when you're pressed from the other guy to say, okay, can you please explain it to me why it is a good rebuttal? You have no fucking idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, you just read the wiki article real quick.
Yeah,
just skim the topic. Yeah.
Right. I mean,
specifically,
at that moment, my biggest reaction is, okay, fuck you and your brother.
Yeah.
That one,
that's how I feel with a ton of, I agree.
And that happened to Ned, literally happened to Ned.
Yeah, I mean, the one that was the most blatant was open theism. He wanted to try to use that.
Right.
And then I'm like, okay, show me why that's wrong. He goes, well, the apologist could make that. And I said, well, give me the apologetic. Well, I don't know it. What do you mean? Then why do you? I mean,
he's mean, man. He's a mean dude.
He literally told you, well, you know that open theists have gotten apologetics for that kind of thing. That literally what he told you.
Yeah,
and when he asked you, okay, what's that apologetic? Penis. The main problem is intellectual honesty. I am positive. I've had conversation with John on things that we disagreed on. Amazing conversation, because none of us was trying to prove a point.
But if I'm wrong and I'm brave enough and intelligent enough to incorporate that new found knowledge, I'm a better person instantly.
I want to almost play a little bit of devil's advocate, but I actually want to say what I think, right? So I think that it's, again, dangerous to kind of use this language when describing, especially like the religious, because we disagree with them, right? But they genuinely believe that they are correct, right? So you believe that you're correct. Most of us do believe that we walk around thinking that we're right? We agree with ourselves a lot, which is fine.
I don't.
That's John.
Yeah, well, you're
right?
better than us, John.
That's what humans do, right? Unlike John, but
and I'm humbler too. Well, it's the old line by Muhammad Ali. It's like, my only problem is that I don't realize how great I actually am.
Oh my God. But listen, like, they believe that they're right. They believe that the things that they believe are true. They are trying to improve themselves, right? They're trying to improve themselves under their belief set, under their framework of like understanding life. So what can I do to be a better Christian? What can I do to understand God better and be closer to God? What can I do to avoid temptation better? What can I do to, like, these are the things that they're thinking about to self-improve. They're not thinking, I could be completely wrong. I need to evaluate this with a more critical eye. No, they're thinking, I'm right. And this is my responsibility. My responsibility is to go out and get in the trenches and help people figure things out and be the sounding board. Like, they do believe that they're right. They do believe that they're intelligent. They do believe that they are improving themselves on a regular basis. Like, they believe the same thing you do. You guys sound like Christians without a God, right? Like, there's no difference, and myself included. There's no difference in what you're sitting here doing versus what they do, except for where your beliefs take you. So
if someone is so stupid or naive to think that they can change some other people's mind with just one conversation,
they have a very fundamental misunderstanding of how human minds and beliefs work.
Right. You end up so in that, it's not only what I would call intellectually dishonest. It's also fundamentally stupid. I don't know why atheists are so invested in their, and I hate the fucking word, worldview, because
it's weird. It's fucking weird.
It is totally fucked up.
They're just Christians without a God. They are just Christians without a God. That's why. I mean, seriously, all they did was change their belief set. They didn't change who they are, what they are, how they form beliefs, how they evaluate things. Just because they lost one belief doesn't mean that they fundamentally changed as human beings. They're still the same creatures doing the same bullshit, just with atheism instead of Christianity.
But it's a lack of being self-aware, because I mean, really, if everybody, and then I quit, everybody could just make a little bit of introspection and look at themselves. I mean, I'm 50. I've lost so many beliefs and gained so many beliefs in my life, and I mean, nothing really has changed drastically.
They were interviewing a CEO or someone in McDonald's, and she's like being super shitty with them too. She's like, why don't you offer the healthier foods? Why don't you offer the salads and to help fight obesity? He's like, we do. They just don't sell. I think there are plenty of great conversations happening on YouTube and in Google and on the internet where people are literally exchanging good ideas, genuinely curious about their beliefs, their belief formation, but they don't sell. They do not sell. They're not as like I don't want to talk to Christians about their beliefs. I don't care why they believe what they believe. I'm not interested in deconverting them, and I don't want to listen to them prattle on about Jesus either. I do, however, like to have conversations like this, right? Like we do the things we want to do. None of us are actually out like beating our heads up again. We literally do this in our spare time for entertainment. We are doing the things we want to do. If it frustrates us, cool, it frustrates us. Not everything we do is going to make us happy. But there are good conversations happening. These are just more fun and entertaining, and that's okay, right? There's no fucking shame in that, I don't think.
Right. I mean, and this comes from the voice of someone which drives a fucking SUV, and she's wrong for that. So, see? I mean, we can have a conversation if it's wrong.
Oh my God. I feel like that was weak.
Like I don't think that's necessarily incorrect. I think you're right that a lot of atheists do carry like an evangelical kind of bent to themselves after they lose their God belief. But I think it's unfair to sort of level that as a criticism, right? I mean, like what are atheists when they deconvert other than, you know, the totality of the person they've been up to that point minus the God belief, right? I mean,
yeah. So,
I understand, like it's just unfair to sort of like point to everybody and say that everybody should be at the same point that I am, like, you know, in their walk with godlessness, right? Like I get that, you know, we are sort of like, you know, pushing out against something that's like you know, the common parlance, right? Like, so it feels like they have to be a little more aggressive, but like I think it is unfair to level that like sort of criticism. And
well,
I think as long as you want to be like as far as like being in the community, right? Like, I mean, I think we all agree that, you know, wanting to improve yourself, that's really what we want. We want to see your attitude demonstrated in these discussions as to like wanting to discuss it and really think about these topics like honestly. And like so I don't really care. Like for me the like it's not their position or their belief that matters. It's their attitude in coming to the conversation. And I don't know, that always seems to fall more on my side than on theirs.
So I'm gonna respond. As far as it being unfair to launch as a criticism, I don't think that it is. Here's why. I don't think it's necessarily a criticism so much as is a description and a mindful, like throwing a little bit of mindfulness, encouraging some reflection, right? I'm no different. Neither is any other human being. Just because we make up our minds and say, oh, I want to live a more reflective life. I want to live a more rational life. I want to, it doesn't mean that we actually do it. Like that's nonsense. It's demonstrably false, right? Demonstrably not the way that we work. That said, I think it's important to point these things out because people need to hear this kind of stuff. I need to hear this kind of stuff. Everyone, I think, needs to hear this kind of stuff. That just because the belief that was abandoned doesn't mean that our superstitions have changed, our way of processing information has changed, our way of reasoning has changed. It doesn't follow. And I think that's important to keep in mind.
Yeah, but I mean, the one thing about self-reflection is you can't do it for somebody else, right? So like to say that somebody else reflective is to sort of assume that you are in their head and telling them like what they're reflecting on. And I mean that's the problem, is everybody's in their own position reflecting on their own reality as they see it. And I don't see how you can maybe make that judgment. But like I do get what you're saying, that it's not necessarily like a criticism, that it can be a descriptor. But I think it's a weird descriptor is all I'm saying.
I don't have to have been a Christian to understand that we are still predictably irrational as human beings. I don't need Christianity to understand that. I need to be a human to understand that. Right? It has very little to do with Christianity. It has much, much more to do with being human. And a lot of times, especially in this corner of the internet, you get a hold of atheists in particular who genuinely believe that because they are atheists and they genuinely behave this way as well, that they have the corner that like they own rationality, they own reason. The only reasonable conclusion is atheism. The only rational conclusion, they genuinely behave and act as if they have the corner on the market. I mean,
Howdy, you got dead air. What are you doing, man? You got to get on this.
Letting us just hang here.
I'm in the middle of cooking stuff and getting the boys some dinner.
What about the chicken? Where's the chicken?
It's right here. Come over, get it.
Why are you shrieking?
Because I can.
Did he turn out in Jerry Seinfeld all of a sudden? What the fuck is going on there?